On February 28, 2026, at 9:45 in the morning Tehran time, 200 Israeli fighter jets crossed into Iranian airspace. 500 targets. 24 of Iran's 31 provinces. By midnight, the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was dead. It was the largest joint military operation in Middle Eastern history. The United States called it Operation Epic Fury. Israel called it Roaring Lion. Every news network covered.
Every story has a playbook you were never meant to see.
The explosions. Nobody covered the part that matters. 78 years ago, Iran was Israel's best friend. Not a cautious partner. Not a distant ally. Best friend. Iran was the second Muslim country on earth to recognize Israel. Israeli engineers built Iranian infrastructure. 40% of Israel's oil came from Iran. Their intelligence agencies, Mossad and Savak, shared secrets, shared training, shared enemies. They even had a code name for the alliance, TRIDENT. This is not a war story. This is a love story. A betrayal story. A story about two countries that have been running the same playbook for 78 years: alliance, betrayal, secret collaboration, shadow war, direct confrontation. And the question nobody is asking, now that Khamenei is dead, could the wheel turn again? 1948. Israel declares independence. Every Arab neighbor attacks. Egypt from the south. Syria from the north. Jordan from the east. Iraq sends troops. Israel survives, barely. David Ben-Gurion, the founding prime minister, stares at a map and sees a problem. Israel is surrounded. So he devises a secret strategy, the periphery doctrine. If the Arab world is hostile, leapfrog them. Find allies at the edges, countries that are not Arab, countries that have their own reasons to fear the Arab world. Turkey to the north. Ethiopia to the south. And Iran-Persia to the east. Iran isn't Arab. Iran is Shia, not Sunni. Iran has its own ancient rivalry with the Arab world. The enemy of my enemy. In 1950, Iran becomes the second Muslim-majority country to recognize Israel. But the real relationship ran deeper than any embassy. In 1958, Israel, Iran, and Turkey form a secret intelligence pact. Codename, TRIDENT. The three countries share intelligence, coordinate covert operations, and build a shadow alliance that no Arab capital knows about. This pact was never publicly acknowledged by any of the three governments. The economic ties were extraordinary. Israel and Iran jointly built a 254-kilometer oil pipeline, the Eilat-Ashkelon line, to bypass the Suez Canal. At its peak, 60 to 80% of Israel's oil flowed through this single pipeline. Iran was Israel's economic lifeline. In exchange, weapons, agricultural technology, and infrastructure expertise. Israeli engineers worked across Iran. Direct El Al flights connected Tel Aviv and Tehran. And Iran's Jewish community, the largest in the Middle East outside Israel, thrived under the Shah's protection. But there's one detail almost nobody talks about. Quiet, in 1957, the Shah of Iran asks for help building a secret police force. The CIA agrees. And so does Israel. Mossad sends agents to Tehran. They help create Savak, Iran's feared intelligence service. They train Savak agents in surveillance, interrogation, and covert operations. Remember this detail. Because the repression that Savak inflicts on the Iranian people, the torture, the disappearances, the fear, will fuel the revolution of 1979. The revolution that creates Israel's greatest enemy. Israel helped build the machine that would eventually turn against it. Pause here. This is 1978. Iran and Israel have been allies for 30 years. They share oil, weapons, intelligence, and enemies. Their spies work side by side. Their engineers build side by side. Everything about this relationship says permanent. Quiet, and then, in less than 12 months, all of it will vanish. 1979. The Islamic Revolution. The Shah is overthrown. Ayatollah Khamenei seizes power. In a matter of weeks, Iran goes from Israel's closest Muslim ally to its most vocal enemy. Khomeini declares Israel the little Satan and America the great Satan. He cuts all diplomatic ties. The Israeli embassy in Tehran, the symbol of 30 years of alliance, is handed to the PLO. And Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader, becomes the first foreign leader Khomeini receives after the revolution. Arafat raises the PLO flag over what was, weeks earlier, an Israeli diplomatic mission. But here's the detail nobody talks about. The revolution didn't start in 1979. It started in 1953. That year, the CIA and MI6 orchestrated a coup Operation Ajax that overthrew Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossad. Why? He nationalized Iranian oil. British Petroleum's profits were threatened. The CIA reinstalled the Shah. That single covert action created the dictatorship. The dictatorship created the repression. The repression fueled the revolution. The revolution created the Islamic Republic. One CIA operation in 1953. The consequences are still unfolding in Operation Epic Fury, 73 years later. Now, you'd think the story is, allies become enemies. End of chapter. Wrong. Because after the revolution, after Khomeini declared Israel the little Satan, after the embassy became PLO headquarters, Israel kept selling weapons to Iran. Not in secret one-off deals. For a decade. An estimated $500 million to $2 billion in arms over the 1980s. Why? Because Iran was fighting Iraq. And a victorious Iraq was a bigger threat to Israel than a hostile Iran. The enemy of my enemy. The playbook never changes. The scheme had a name, the Iran-Contra affair. By 1985, the US officially backs Iraq. Iran is the declared enemy. But secretly, the Reagan administration approves a plan. Israel sells American weapons to Iran. 500 Hawk missiles. 1,000 TOW anti-tank missiles. The profits are funneled to Contra rebels in Nicaragua, bypassing a congressional ban. And here's the detail that belongs in a movie. Reagan's national security advisor, Robert McFarlane, flies to Tehran on a secret mission. He brings with him a Bible personally inscribed by Ronald Reagan. A cake shaped like a key symbolizing the key to US-Iran relations. And Irish passports as fake identities. The Iranians are not impressed. The mission fails. But the deeper truth was worse than the scandal. The United States was simultaneously arming both sides of the Iran-Iraq war. Publicly backing Iraq. Secretly arming Iran. Through Israel. The same Israel that Iran had declared its mortal enemy. Public narrative, three countries that hate each other. Private reality, a weapons triangle. November 1986, a Lebanese magazine called Ash-Shira publishes the story. The scandal nearly destroys the Reagan presidency. But the deeper lesson is this: the public narrative and the private reality have never matched in this relationship. Not once. Not in 1958 when the alliance was secret. Not in 1985 when the enemies were secret business partners. The playbook was never about ideology. It was always about interests. After Iran-Contra, the secret deals end. The relationship enters its most lethal phase. Phase, the Shadow War. Iran builds what it calls the Axis of Resistance, a network of armed groups across the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the most powerful non-state army in the world. Hamas in Gaza, Iran's Sunni card, proving the alliance transcends sectarian lines when interests align. The Houthis in Yemen. Iraqi militias. Think of it as a franchise system. Iran provides funding, weapons, and training. The proxies provide deniable military reach. Iran can strike Israel without a single Iranian soldier crossing a border. In 2005, the United States and Israel begin building something that has never existed before, a cyber weapon. Codename, Operation Olympic Games. The target, Iran's Natanz nuclear enrichment facility, buried underground, protected by the most advanced security Iran possesses. The delivery method, a Dutch intelligence mole, recruited by the CIA and Mossad, who physically carries the virus into the facility on a USB drive. The virus, later known as Stuxnet, alters the centrifuge's programming. It makes them spin erratically, destroying themselves from the inside out. But here's the genius: while the centrifuges tear themselves apart, the monitoring systems report everything is normal. Quiet, the Iranian engineers stare at their screens and see nothing wrong. Their nuclear program is set back 2 years. And they don't even know why. The world's first active cyber war was fought between two countries that had been allies just 26 years earlier. Between 2010 and 2020, at least 5 Iranian nuclear scientists are killed in operations widely attributed to Mossad. Car bombs. Drive-by shootings. And in November 2020, the most extraordinary one, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the father of Iran's nuclear program, killed by a remote-controlled machine gun mounted in a parked car. The weapon uses facial recognition technology. No assassin is present. But buried between the cyber attacks and the assassinations, there's a moment most people have forgotten. In 2003, Iran sends a 2-page fax to the United States through the Swiss ambassador. It offers everything: full nuclear transparency, cooperation on fighting terrorism, an end to support for Hamas and Hezbollah, normalization with Israel through a 2-state solution. A grand bargain. The Bush administration doesn't respond. They don't even acknowledge receiving it. 23 years later, we have Operation Epic Fury. Quiet, one unanswered fax. An entire alternate history that never happened. September 2024. Thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah simultaneously explode across Lebanon. Israel had infiltrated the supply chain, planting tiny explosives in communication devices before they reached Hezbollah fighters. 37 killed. 3,000 injured. In a single day. Days later, Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, the most powerful proxy commander Iran had ever built, is assassinated in a targeted airstrike. In 1 month, Israel dismantled Iran's most powerful proxy. The shadow war went from invisible to catastrophically visible. For decades, the shadow war had one unwritten rule: no direct state-on-state attack. In April 2024, Iran broke it. Operation True Promise, 300 drones and missiles launched directly at Israel. The first direct Iranian attack on Israeli soil in 76 years. Israel intercepts 99%. Retaliates with strikes near Isfahan. October, Iran fires again. 180 ballistic missiles. Israel hits back harder. June 2025, a 12-day war. Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran retaliates against Israeli cities. The United States joins the strikes. The proxy shield is gone. Hezbollah decapitated. Hamas degraded. Iran must fight for itself. Late 2025. Iran begins to crack from within. Massive nationwide protests erupt, the largest since 1979. Over 100 cities. Economic collapse. The rial in freefall. The Islamic Republic is under pressure from outside and inside. Quiet, sound familiar? The last time Iran's streets looked like this, a revolution followed. February 2026. Oman mediates indirect US-Iran nuclear talks. On February 27, Oman's foreign minister announces a breakthrough. Iran agrees to never stockpile enriched uranium. Full verification by the International Atomic Energy Agency. A second round of negotiations is scheduled for Geneva. For one single day, it looks like diplomacy might work. 24 hours later. 9:45 in the morning, Tehran time. Operation Epic Fury begins. 200 Israeli fighters. 500 targets. 24 of 31 provinces. By midnight, Supreme Leader Khamenei, the man who had ruled Iran for 37 years, who had directed the proxy wars, who had overseen the nuclear program, who had chanted death to Israel for nearly 4 decades, was dead. Read that timeline again.
If you want to see the playbook behind the next story, subscribe.